The red lights started flashing at exactly 2 in the morning. Jake Morrison was mopping the floor in Section D when the alarm began to scream through the corridors. He stopped pushing his mop and looked up at the ceiling. The sound was loud and angry, bouncing off the metal walls of the space station. Jake had worked on Orbital Station Meridian 7 for 3 years now. He was a janitor on the night shift, which meant he cleaned when most people were sleeping. He liked it that way. It was quiet and he could work at his own pace. But this sound was not normal. This was the emergency alarm, the one that meant something bad was happening. He grabbed his mop and put it back in his cleaning cart. The cart was full of supplies, bottles of cleaning solution, spare rags, a few tools, and his lunchbox. Jake pushed the cart toward the wall and looked at the communication panel near the door. The screen was flashing red with white letters that said, "Lockdown, all personnel report to safe zones immediately." Jake scratched his head. He was supposed to go to the nearest safe zone, but his cart was still in Corridor 12B. That corridor was near the research labs, and he needed to get his stuff. Pete Carver, his supervisor, would be angry if he lost another cart. The last one had cost the maintenance department 2,000 credits. He started walking toward Corridor 12B. The hallways were empty now. Everyone else had already run to the safe zones. His footsteps echoed in the silence between the alarm sounds. Jake was not too worried. The station had alarms all the time. Usually it was just a drill or a small problem with the air system, but when he turned the corner into Corridor 12B, he saw something that made him stop. There was blood on the floor, not a little bit of blood. A lot of blood. It was dark red and still wet, spreading across the clean floor he had mopped just 2 hours ago. Jake felt his heart beat faster. He looked around, but the corridor was empty. The blood trail led from the research lab doors toward the cargo area. Someone was hurt. Maybe more than one person. He heard running footsteps behind him. Jake turned and saw Dr. Lisa Grant coming toward him. She was a human woman in her early 40s, with short brown hair and glasses. She worked in the xenobiology department, studying alien animals. Right now, she looked terrified. Her white lab coat had a tear in it, and her hands were shaking. "Jake," she shouted when she saw him, "what are you doing here? You need to get to a safe zone right now?" "I was getting my cart," Jake said, pointing down the corridor. "What happened? Is someone hurt?" Lisa grabbed his arm. Her grip was tight. "It escaped," she said. Her voice was shaking. "The Void Render, it broke out of containment 20 minutes ago." Jake blinked. "The what?" "The Void Render," Lisa repeated. She was pulling him back toward the main corridor. "It's a predator from the Krell Nebula, Class 5 danger rating. We've been studying it for 6 months. It's never been aggressive before, but tonight it just went crazy. It killed 2 security officers already." Jake felt cold. He had heard about dangerous animals in the research labs, but he never paid much attention. That was not his job. His job was to clean floors and empty trash bins. "How big is it?" he asked. 6 meters long, Lisa said. "Maybe 7. It has scales like armor and claws that can cut through steel. Commander Velther sent 3 security teams after it, but it's too fast. It's somewhere in the station right now." They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Lisa stopped and looked at her datapad. The screen showed a map of the station with red dots moving around. "The security teams are searching the cargo bay," she said. "You need to come with me to Safe Zone 3. It's not far." But Jake was not listening anymore. He was thinking about what she had said. The creature had not been aggressive before, but tonight it went crazy. Something had changed. "You said it was never aggressive before?" he asked. Lisa looked at him like he was stupid. "Yes, but that does not matter now. It's a killer. We need to get somewhere safe." "Why did it change?" Jake asked. "What happened?" Lisa made a frustrated sound. "I don't know. Maybe the containment field hurt it. Maybe it got sick of being in a cage. Animals don't need a reason to attack, Jake. Now come on." "When did it last eat?" Jake asked. Lisa stopped pulling his arm. She looked at her datapad again, scrolling through information. 3 days ago, she said slowly. It refused all the food we offered. We were going to try a different type of protein tomorrow. Jake nodded. "It's hungry," he said. "And scared. It's a monster," Lisa said. and it's going to kill more people if we don't get out of here. Before Jake could answer, they heard a sound. It came from far away, echoing through the metal corridors. It was a roar, deep and loud like nothing Jake had ever heard before. It made the walls vibrate. It made his chest feel tight. Every part of his body wanted to run away from that sound. Lisa's face went white. "It's close," she whispered. "We need to move. Now." She started running toward the safe zone. Jake watched her go, then looked back at the corridor where his cart was waiting. He thought about the blood on the floor. He thought about the creature that was somewhere in the station. Hungry and scared and dangerous. Jake had worked at an animal shelter back on Earth before he came to space. That was 10 years ago, before he needed money and took the first job he could find. The shelter had all kinds of animals: dogs, cats, rabbits, even a few exotic birds. Some of those animals were aggressive. Some had been hurt by people and did not trust anyone. But Jake had learned something important at that shelter. Every animal, no matter how dangerous it seemed, was just trying to survive. Fear and hunger made them bite. Pain made them attack. But if you were patient, if you were calm, if you showed them you were not a threat, most animals would calm down too. Of course, the Void Render was not a dog. It was an alien predator that had already killed 2 people. Jake knew he should run to the safe zone like Lisa said. That was the smart thing to do. That was what anyone with common sense would do, but Jake had never been very good at doing the smart thing. He turned and walked back toward corridor 12B. He found his cleaning cart right where he had left it. The corridor was quiet now, except for the alarm that kept screaming. Jake pushed his cart toward the main junction and then turned left, heading for the commissary. The commissary was where station personnel ate their meals. It had a big kitchen in the back with freezers full of food. Jake used his access card to open the door. The lights turned on automatically, bright and white. He went straight to the kitchen and opened the large freezer. Cold air poured out. Inside were packages of frozen food from a dozen different worlds. Jake ignored most of it and grabbed several packages of frozen meat. He did not know what kind of meat it was, but it looked like beef. He hoped the Void Render would not be picky. Jake also took a heating unit from the kitchen counter. It was small, about the size of his hand, and could warm food in a few minutes. He put everything in his cart and left the commissary. His next stop was a supply closet in Section C. Jake used his maintenance keycard to open it. Inside were shelves full of cables, tools, spare parts, and equipment. He found a length of flexible cable, about 3 meters long. It was strong, but not too heavy. He also grabbed some mechanical clips and connectors. He was not sure exactly what he would need, but these seemed useful. When Jake came out of the supply closet, he almost ran into Commander Velther. The commander was tall, even for a Krathan. His species looked like large insects walking on 2 legs, with 4 arms and a hard shell covering their bodies. Velther had been the station's security chief for 5 years. "Human Morrison," Velther said. His voice came from a translator device on his chest. "Why are you not in a safe zone?" Jake pushed his cart to the side. "I needed to get some supplies," he said. Velther's antennae moved, which meant he was confused or irritated. "Supplies for what?" "There is a Class 5 predator loose on this station. My officers are searching for it right now." "I know," Jake said. "I'm going to help." The commander made a clicking sound. "You are a janitor. You have no weapons training. You have no combat experience. The best help you can provide is to stay out of the way." "I worked with dangerous animals before," Jake said. Back on Earth, Velther's antennae moved again. "The Void Render is not an Earth animal. It is a killing machine that has evolved over millions of years to hunt and destroy prey. My best officers could not stop it." "What makes you think you can?" Jake shrugged. "I don't think I can stop it. But maybe I can calm it down." The commander stared at him for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. "Humans," he said. "You are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. I have not decided which." "Maybe both," Jake said. Velther waved one of his 4 arms. "Go to the safe zone, Morrison. That is an order." But Jake was already pushing his cart down the corridor. "Sorry, Commander," he called back. I've got work to do. Behind him, he heard Velther talking into his communication device, probably telling his security teams to watch out for a crazy human janitor. Jake did not care. He had a plan now, sort of. It was not a good plan, and it would probably get him killed. But it was better than hiding in a safe zone while people died and a scared animal destroyed the station. Jake pushed his cart through the empty corridors, following the signs toward the lower decks. That was where the cargo bays were, where there were lots of D. The lower decks of Orbital Station Meridian 7 were different from the upper levels. Up above, everything was clean and bright, with wide corridors and nice decorations. Down here, it was all metal and shadows. This was where the station kept its cargo, its machinery, and all the things that people did not want to see. Jake pushed his cleaning cart through the narrow passages. His footsteps made hollow sounds on the metal floor. The alarm was quieter down here, but he could still hear it echoing from far away. The red emergency lights made everything look strange, like he was walking through a bad dream. He stopped at a junction and looked at the walls. There were scratches in the metal, fresh ones. They were deep, cutting through the surface like someone had dragged knives across it. Jake touched one of the scratches. It was still warm. The creature had come this way. Jake kept moving, following the trail of scratches and marks. He passed through the cargo bay where hundreds of containers were stacked to the ceiling. Each container held goods from different worlds: food, equipment, raw materials. Some of them were worth more money than Jake would make in his entire life, but none of that mattered right now. He heard voices ahead, and quickly pushed his cart behind a stack of containers. Through a gap, he could see 3 security officers moving through the bay. They were not human. 2 were from a species called the Vrel, with blue skin and extra joints in their arms. The third was a Krathen like Commander Velther, but smaller. All 3 carried plasma rifles. The weapons glowed with a soft blue light. Jake had seen plasma rifles before. They could burn through almost anything. The security officers were moving slowly, checking every shadow, every space between the containers. Sector 7B clear, one of the Vrel said into his communication device. Moving to Sector 7C. Negative, a voice answered from the device. It sounded like Commander Velther. Return to checkpoint. The creature was spotted in Section 9. All teams converged there. The 3 officers turned and ran back the way they had come. Jake waited until their footsteps faded, then came out from his hiding spot. Section 9 was on the other side of the lower decks. If the security teams were going there, that meant this area would be empty. Good. Jake did not want armed officers around when he found the Void Render. Guns would just make the creature more scared and more dangerous. He needed to do this alone, with no one shooting at things. He continued deeper into the cargo area. The scratches on the walls became more frequent. There was a smell too, something sharp and bitter like metal and acid mixed together. Jake remembered that smell from the animal shelter. It was the smell of fear. Then he found more blood. This blood was different from what he had seen before. It was darker, almost black, and it had a strange texture. Jake realized this was not human blood. This was the creature's blood. It was hurt. The plasma rifles must have hit it during the attack. An injured animal was even more dangerous than a scared one. Jake knew that. But an injured animal also needed help. It needed someone who was not trying to kill it. He followed the blood trail to a service corridor that led even deeper into the station. The corridor was narrow, with pipes and cables running along the ceiling. The lights here were broken, and Jake had to use the small flashlight from his cart to see. The blood trail ended at a door marked Storage 1-2D, deprecated. Jake knew that word. Deprecated meant old, not used anymore. This storage room probably had junk that no one wanted, but no one had thrown away yet. He put his hand on the door panel. It was not locked. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside was darkness. Jake pointed his flashlight into the room. The beam of light showed stacks of old containers, broken equipment, and piles of spare parts. The room was large, maybe 20 meters across. There were spaces between the junk, places where something could hide. "Hello?" Jake said quietly. His voice sounded small in the darkness. No answer. Jake stepped into the room. The door closed behind him, making him jump. He took a deep breath and told himself to calm down. He was here to help, not to fight. But his heart was beating fast and his hands felt sweaty. He moved forward slowly, pushing aside hanging cables and stepping over broken parts. The flashlight beam bounced around the room. Then he heard it breathing. It was coming from the far corner, behind a stack of old shipping containers. The breathing was deep and rough, like someone trying to breathe through pain. Jake turned off his flashlight and stood still. He waited for his eyes to adjust to the darkness. Slowly, he began to see shapes in the gloom. There, in the corner, was something big. Something that was not supposed to be there. The void render. Jake could only see its outline at first. It was huge, much bigger than he had imagined. Its body was long and low to the ground, covered in scales that looked like pieces of dark glass. Even in the darkness, those scales seemed to drink in all the light. The creature's head turned toward him. Jake saw eyes, yellow and bright, glowing in the dark. They were not human eyes. They were predator eyes, the kind that saw everything as either food or threat. Jake stood very still. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run. His legs felt weak. His mouth was dry. This thing had killed 2 people. It could kill him in seconds, but he did not run. Instead, he slowly sat down on the floor. He moved carefully, making sure not to make any sudden movements. He sat cross-legged, like he used to sit in the shelter when he was working with aggressive dogs. The void render watched him. Its breathing got louder. Was it getting ready to attack? Jake reached into his cart, which he had pulled into the room with him. He took out one of the frozen meat packages and the small heating unit. His hands were shaking, but he managed to unwrap the meat and place it in the heater. The device made a soft humming sound as it warmed the meat. The smell of cooking food began to fill the room. Jake watched the creature's eyes. They were still fixed on him, but something changed. The void render's head moved slightly, its nostrils flaring. It could smell the food. "I bet you're hungry," Jake said quietly. He kept his voice soft and calm, the way he used to talk to the frightened animals at the shelter. "It's okay to be hungry. Everyone gets hungry." The creature did not move, but it did not attack either. That was good. After a few minutes, the meat was warm. Jake carefully took it from the heater and placed it on the floor. Then he slowly pushed it across the metal surface toward the void render. The meat slid about 2 meters and stopped halfway between them. "There you go," Jake said. "It's not much, but it's something." The void render stared at the meat. Then it looked at Jake, then back at the meat. It was confused. Jake could see that. This creature had probably never seen prey that offered food instead of running away. Jake waited. He did not move. He barely breathed. He just sat there in the darkness with a monster, hoping his instincts were right. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Finally, the void render moved. It crept forward slowly, its body low to the ground. Every movement was careful, suspicious. It reached the meat and sniffed it. Then, in one quick motion, it snatched the meat with its mouth and retreated back to the corner. Jake heard the sound of eating. The creature was hungry, just like he thought. How long had it been since it ate? 3 days, Lisa had said. No wonder it was aggressive. Jake had seen enough animals to know that hunger could make any creature dangerous. He prepared another piece of meat, warming it in the heater. When it was ready, he slid it across the floor again. This time, the void render took it faster. It did not retreat as far back. Jake repeated this process over and over. He had brought 6 packages of meat and he used them all. Each time, the creature came a little closer. Each time, it seemed a little less afraid. Somewhere above them, Jake knew the security teams were searching. Commander Velther was probably furious that they could not find the creature. The station administrator was probably demanding answers. But down here, in this forgotten storage room, none of that mattered. It was just Jake and the void render. 2 beings trying to understand each other. After the last piece of meat was gone, Jake spoke again. "I know you're hurt," he said. "I can help with that, but I need you to trust me." The creature tilted its head. Could it understand him? Probably not the words, but maybe the tone. Animals understood tone. Jake slowly reached into his cart and pulled out a basic medical kit. Every maintenance worker carried one in case they cut themselves on sharp metal or burned themselves on hot pipes. He opened the kit and took out some cleaning solution and bandage material. "I'm going to move closer now," Jake said. "Just to look at your injury. I'm not going to hurt you." He stood up very slowly. The void render tensed, its muscles coiling like springs. Jake saw its claws extend, long and sharp like knives. One swipe from those claws would cut him in half, but Jake kept moving. One step, then another. He was 5 meters away now. Then 4. Then 3. The creature growled. It was a deep sound that rumbled through Jake's chest. A warning. Jake stopped. "Okay," he said. "I hear you. We'll go slower." He sat down again, closer this time. From here he could see the injury clearly. There was a burn mark on the creature's side, where the scales were blackened and cracked. Plasma fire. It looked painful. Jake showed the creature the medical kit. "This will help," he said. "I promise." He did not know if the void render understood. Jake sat on the floor of the storage room with a makeshift collar in his hands. The void render was watching him from a few meters away. Its yellow eyes glowed in the darkness like 2 small suns. The creature had stopped growling, which was good. But it was still tense, still ready to run or fight. "Look," Jake said, holding up the cable collar. "I know this looks weird. But if you want to get out of here safely, we need to work together." The creature tilted its head again. That movement reminded Jake of a dog trying to understand its owner. Of course, this was not a dog. This was a predator that could tear through steel doors. But Jake had learned long ago that most animals, no matter where they came from, shared some basic behaviors. Trust had to be earned slowly. Jake placed the collar on the floor and slid it toward the void render, just like he had done with the meat. The creature sniffed it, poked it with one massive claw. The collar was simple, a loop of flexible cable with a connector that could adjust the size. Jake had made it in about 10 minutes, using parts from his maintenance cart. "It won't hurt," Jake said. "I promise." He stood up slowly and walked toward the creature. Every step felt like it took forever. The void render watched him come closer. Its breathing got faster. Jake could see its muscles bunching up under those dark scales. 5 meters away. 4 meters. 3. Jake's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break out of his chest. His survival instincts were screaming at him to run, to get away from this dangerous animal. But he kept walking. 2 meters. The void render opened its mouth slightly. Jake saw those crystalline teeth sharp as razors. One bite would be the end of him. But the creature did not attack. It was waiting, trying to decide if Jake was a threat. "Easy," Jake whispered. "Easy, girl." He did not know if the void render was male or female. He just picked girl because it felt right. Sometimes you had to trust your gut. 1 meter. Jake was close enough now to touch the creature. He could feel heat coming from its body. He could smell that sharp, bitter scent of fear and pain. The void render was scared, just like he was. Jake reached out his hand very slowly. The creature's eyes followed every tiny movement. When his hand was a few centimeters from the creature's scales, Jake stopped and waited. This was the most important moment. He was giving the void render a choice. It could attack or it could accept his touch. Everything depended on what happened next. Seconds passed. The only sound was their breathing. Then the void render leaned forward, just a little bit. Its head touched Jake's hand. The scales felt strange, smooth but also rough, like polished stone. They were warm. Jake moved his hand slowly, gently running it along the side of the creature's head. The void render made that soft sound again, that almost purr that rumbled deep in its chest. "Good girl," Jake said. His voice was shaking with relief. "Good girl?" He picked up the collar from where it lay on the floor. Moving carefully, he brought it up to the creature's neck. The void render watched but did not pull away. Jake slipped the collar around its thick neck and adjusted the connector until it was snug but not tight. "There," he said. Not so bad, right? The void render shook its head, uncomfortable with the new sensation. But the collar held. Jake picked up the other end of the cable, which was about 3 meters long. He gave it a gentle tug. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you home." The creature did not move at first. It just stared at Jake like he was crazy. Maybe he was crazy. But he gave the cable another gentle pull, and this time the void render took a step forward, then another step. They were moving. Jake led the way out of the storage room, walking slowly and keeping the cable loose. The void render followed behind him, its claws clicking on the metal floor. To anyone watching, it would look like a man walking a very large, very dangerous pet. They moved through the service corridor and back into the cargo bay. The emergency lights were still flashing, painting everything in shades of red. Jake knew that security teams were searching other parts of the station. He needed to get the creature back to containment before someone saw them and started shooting, but luck was not on his side. As they entered the main cargo area, Jake heard voices. 3 security officers appeared from behind a stack of containers. They were the same ones Jake had seen earlier, 2 Vrel and 1 Krathen. The moment they saw the void render, all 3 raised their plasma rifles. "Don't shoot!" Jake yelled, stepping between the creature and the guns. "Don't shoot! Human, move out of the way!" One of the Vrel shouted. "That creature is dangerous." "She's not going to hurt anyone," Jake said. He could feel the void render tense behind him. The creature was scared again. "Just lower your weapons, please." "Step aside," the Krathen officer said. "That is an order." Jake did not move. "If you shoot, you'll make everything worse. She's scared and hurt. That's why she attacked before. But she's calm now." "That thing killed 2 of our people," the Vrel said. His finger was on the trigger. "It needs to be destroyed." The void render growled, a deep warning sound. Jake felt the cable pull tight in his hand. The creature wanted to run or fight. He had to keep it calm. "Listen to me," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I know you're angry. I know you're scared. But look at her. Really look. She's not attacking. She's just afraid." The 3 officers did not lower their weapons, but they did not fire either. They were confused. They had been hunting a monster for hours, and now they found a human janitor walking it on a leash like a pet. "Commander Velther needs to see this," the Krathen officer said finally. He spoke into his communication device. "Commander, this is Officer Krell. We have found the creature. It is in Cargo Bay 7. The human janitor Morrison is with it. He has the creature on some kind of restraint." There was a long pause. Then Commander Velther's voice came through, sounding very tired. "Repeat that, Officer Krell." "The human has the void render on a leash, sir. The creature is not attacking. It is following him peacefully." Another pause. "I am coming there now. Do not engage unless the creature attacks." "Understood?" "Yes, sir." The 3 officers kept their weapons pointed at the void render, but they backed away slowly. Jake stayed where he was, one hand holding the cable, the other raised in a calming gesture toward the creature. "It's okay," he said softly. "They're not going to hurt you. We're almost safe." More footsteps echoed through the cargo bay. Commander Velther appeared, along with 5 more security officers. Behind them was Dr. Lisa Grant carrying her datapad. Her eyes went wide when she saw Jake and the void render. "This is impossible," she whispered. Commander Velther walked closer, his forearms hanging at his sides. He looked at Jake, then at the creature, then back at Jake. His antennae were moving in a pattern that Jake had never seen before. "Morrison," the commander said slowly. "What have you done?" Jake shrugged. "I fed her. Treated her wound. Now I'm taking her back to containment." "You fed a Class 5 predator," Velther said. "You approached it while it was injured and cornered. You put a collar on it. And now you are walking it through my station like it is a domestic animal." "Yeah," Jake said. "That's about right." Dr. Lisa Grant stepped forward, her datapad held up. She was scanning the void render with some kind of device. "This is incredible," she said. "Her stress levels have dropped by 70%. Her heart rate is almost normal. Jake, what did you do? I just showed her I wasn't a threat, Jake said. And I gave her what she needed: food, medical care, a little kindness. Lisa was still staring at her datapad. The biological markers are all showing relaxation. She's not in fight or flight mode anymore. This should not be possible. We tried everything to calm her down in containment, but nothing worked. Maybe you were trying too hard, Jake said. Sometimes you just need to be patient and let the animal come to you. Commander Velther made that clicking sound again. Humans, he said, shaking his head. You are all insane. Probably, Jake agreed. Can we get her back to containment now? I think she's getting tired. The Void Render was indeed looking tired. Her head was drooping and her movements were slow. The injury, the stress, and the full meal had worn her out. Clear a path, Velther ordered. All weapons down. We escort them back to the research wing. The security officers lowered their plasma rifles. They formed a circle around Jake and the creature, keeping their distance but staying alert. The group began moving through the station's corridors. News traveled fast on Meridian 7 as they walked. More people appeared. Station workers peeked around corners. Scientists watched from safe distances. Everyone wanted to see the human janitor walking the station's most dangerous predator on a homemade leash. Jake heard whispers as they passed. Is that really the Void Render? That human must be crazy. Look how calm it is. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Some people were taking pictures with their datapads. Jake ignored them all. He focused on the creature beside him, making sure she stayed calm. Every few steps, he would speak to her in that soft voice, telling her everything was okay. They reached the research wing after 20 minutes of slow walking. The containment area had been reinforced with extra security barriers. Inside was a large cell with a soft floor and some simple furniture. It was not perfect, but it was better than a cage. Dr. Lisa Grant opened the containment door. We made some changes, she said. Based on what we learned about stress and captivity, I think. The station administrator's office was on the top level of Meridian 7. Jake had never been there before. He usually stayed in the lower levels where the maintenance work happened. This office had windows that looked out into space, showing stars and distant planets. It was beautiful and a little bit scary. Administrator Krenix sat behind a large desk made of some kind of blue crystal. He was an Aldarian, which meant he looked sort of like a tall, thin human with silver skin and 3 eyes. The third eye was in the middle of his forehead. All 3 eyes were looking at Jake right now. Mr. Morrison, Krenix said. His voice was deep and calm. Do you understand why you are here? Jake stood in front of the desk with his hands behind his back. Commander Velther stood beside him. Dr. Lisa Grant was there too, sitting in a chair near the window. I think so, Jake said. I broke protocol by not going to the safe zone. That is correct, Krenix said. You ignored direct orders. You put yourself in extreme danger. You could have been killed. Jake nodded. Yes, sir. However, Krenix continued, you also prevented further casualties. You subdued a dangerous predator without violence. And you demonstrated remarkable courage and ingenuity. Jake was not sure where this was going. Was he getting fired or getting a medal? Sometimes it was hard to tell with administrators. Krenix tapped his desk with one long finger. I have received reports from Commander Velther and Dr. Grant. Both have said that what you did tonight should have been impossible. Commander Velther believes you are either insane or blessed by fortune. Dr. Grant believes you have discovered something important about cross-species communication. I just treated her like any scared animal, Jake said. That's all. That is precisely the point, Doctor, Grant said from her chair. She stood up and walked over, holding her datapad. Every species in the Galactic Collective has protocols for handling dangerous predators. Those protocols involve sedation, restraint, and if necessary, termination. What they do not involve is empathy. Because empathy gets you killed, Commander Velther said. Predators do not care about your feelings. They care about survival. But Jake showed that survival does not always require violence, Lisa said. She was excited now, talking faster. The Void Render was aggressive because she felt threatened. When Jake removed that threat and provided what she needed, her behavior changed completely. This is not new science. We have known for centuries that environment affects behavior. But no one thought to apply it to a creature like this. Krennic held up one hand. Dr. Grant, I understand your enthusiasm. But this does not change the fact that Mr. Morrison violated safety protocols. With respect, Administrator, Lisa said, if Jake had followed protocols, we would have a dead creature and possibly more dead officers. His actions saved lives and saved an extremely rare specimen. That should count for something. The Administrator's 3 eyes blinked one at a time, which Jake thought might mean he was thinking hard. Finally, Krennic spoke again. Mr. Morrison, you are hereby officially reprimanded for ignoring evacuation orders. This reprimand will go in your personnel file. Jake's heart sank. That meant he might lose his job. However, Krennic continued, you are also hereby commended for exceptional bravery and problem-solving in a crisis situation. You will receive a bonus of 5,000 credits and a formal letter of recognition. Jake blinked. Really? Really, Krennic said. He almost smiled. Almost. What you did tonight was foolish and dangerous. But it was also exactly what was needed. That is the nature of heroism, I suppose. Do not make a habit of it. No, sir, Jake said. I won't. There is one more thing, Dr. Grant said. Administrator, I would like to request that Jake be assigned to the Xenobiology Department as a consultant. His skills with animal behavior could be invaluable to our research. Commander Velther made a surprised clicking sound. He is a janitor, Doctor. He is a janitor who did what your entire security force could not do, Lisa said. I think that qualifies him. Jake raised his hand like he was in school. I still need to finish my shift. Pete Carver will be really mad if I don't clean the rest of Section D. All 3 of them stared at him. You just walked a deadly predator through the station on a homemade leash, Velther said slowly, and you are worried about your cleaning schedule? Pete gets really mad, Jake said. He's scary when he's mad. Dr. Grant laughed. It was the first time Jake had heard her laugh all night. I will talk to Pete, she said. I think he will understand. We are done here, Administrator Krennic said. Mr. Morrison, you are dismissed. Get some rest. I suspect tomorrow will be a very long day for you. Jake nodded and turned to leave. But Commander Velther stopped him with one of his 4 hands on Jake's shoulder. Morrison, the commander said, what you did tonight was remarkable. Stupid but remarkable. If you ever decide you want combat training, come find me. Someone with your instincts could be very useful to the security force. Thanks, Jake said. But I think I'll stick with mopping floors. It's safer. Velther made that clicking laugh again. Somehow, I doubt you will ever do anything safe. Jake left the administrator's office and took the elevator down to the maintenance level. It was almost 6 in the morning now. His shift was supposed to end at 7. The station was starting to wake up, with workers heading to their jobs and shops beginning to open. Everywhere Jake went, people stared at him. Word had spread fast. In a community of 50,000 people living in a metal box in space, news traveled at light speed. Everyone had heard about the human janitor who tamed the Void Render. Some people whispered as he walked past. Others pointed. A few even asked for pictures. Jake just wanted to finish his work and go home. He found his cleaning cart right where he had left it. Outside storage 1-2D, half the supplies were gone, used during his adventure with the creature. He would need to restock before his next shift. Jake pushed the cart back to Section D and finished mopping the floors. The blood was still there, dark and dried now. He cleaned it carefully, making sure no trace remained. 2 people had died here. That was not something to forget. By the time he finished, it was 7:30. Pete Carver found him putting away the cleaning supplies in the maintenance closet. Jake, Pete said. He was a big man with a thick beard and a voice like rocks grinding together. We need to talk. I know, Jake said. I'm sorry I didn't finish on time. The whole thing with the creature took longer than I expect. Pete stared at him. Then he started laughing. It was a big, loud laugh that echoed in the small closet. Kid, you're worried about being late? You're a damned hero. Everyone's talking about you. I'm not a hero, Jake said. I just did what made sense. That's what heroes always say, Pete said. He clapped Jake on the back hard enough to make him stumble. Dr. Grant called me. Said she wants to borrow you for some kind of consulting work. That okay with you? I guess, Jake said. As long as I can still do my regular job, your regular job? Pete shook his head. Jake, after tonight, you could probably ask for any job on this station. Why do you want to keep pushing a mop? Jake thought about it. Because I like it, he said finally. It's simple, it's honest. And at the end of the day, I can see what I accomplished. Clean floors, empty trash bins. It feels good. Pete smiled. You're a weird one, Jake Morrison. But you're all right. Take the rest of the day off. You earned it. Jake went back to his quarters, a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window that showed a view of the station's exterior. He was so tired he could barely stand. But before he slept, he checked his datapad. There were messages. Lots of messages. Some were from people congratulating him. Some were from news services asking for interviews. A few were from other stations. In the sector, people who had heard the story and wanted to know more. Jake ignored most of them. But there was one message from Dr. Lisa Grant that he opened. Jake, I've been analyzing the data from tonight. The void render's biological responses to your presence are unlike anything I've seen. She has bonded with you on a deep level. I would like to continue studying this relationship with your permission. Also, she has not eaten since you left. I think she misses you. Would you be willing to visit tomorrow? Jake smiled and sent back a simple reply. Sure, I'll bring treats. He fell asleep still wearing his maintenance uniform, too tired to change. When he woke up 12 hours later, the entire station had changed. Or maybe Jake had changed. It was hard to tell. He got messages from Administrator Krennic's office saying that reporters from 3 different news networks wanted to talk to him. He got a message from Pete saying that maintenance department was getting calls from all over the sector. He even got a message from his mother back on Earth, who had somehow heard about what happened and wanted to know if he was okay. But the message Jake cared about most was from Lisa Grant. The void render is doing well. She is eating again and her injury is healing. Come by when you can. Bring those treats you mentioned. Jake stopped by the commissary and picked up more meat packages. He also found something interesting, a box of treats made for a species called the Corthians. They were small chunks of protein mixed with some kind of sweet mineral. The label said they were good for carnivorous species. Jake bought the whole box when he arrived at the research wing. There was a crowd of scientists and students waiting outside the containment area. 3 weeks had passed since the night Jake Morrison walked a void render through the station on a homemade leash. In that time, everything had changed, but also nothing had changed. Jake still worked as a janitor on the night shift. He still pushed his cleaning cart through empty corridors and mopped floors. He still ate his lunch in the maintenance break room with Pete Carver and the other workers. That part of his life stayed the same, and he liked it that way, but other things were different now. Every day at 3 in the afternoon, Jake would finish cleaning and go to the research wing. Dr. Lisa Grant had set up a schedule where Jake would spend time with the creature they now officially called Subject 47B, but Jake had his own name for her. Hey, Maggie, Jake said as he entered the containment area. It was his day off, but he still came to visit. How are you doing today? The void render, now named after Jake's grandmother who had taught him to be patient with all living things, lifted her head from where she lay in the corner. When she saw Jake, her tail started swishing back and forth. She made that deep purring sound that had become familiar to everyone who worked in the research wing. Lisa Grant was at her usual spot by the computer terminal. She smiled when Jake entered. Over the past 3 weeks, she had become something like a friend. They had spent hours talking about animal behavior, about the science behind bonding, about how fear and hunger could make any creature dangerous. She has been waiting for you, Lisa said. She barely touched her breakfast. I think she knew you were coming. Jake opened the containment door and stepped inside. Maggie came to him immediately, pushing her massive head against his chest. He scratched behind her head ridge, the spot that always made her purr louder. I brought you something special today, Jake said, pulling out a package from his bag. It was a large piece of meat prepared specially by the commissary chef. Over the past weeks, the station's food service had started making treats specifically for Maggie. The chef, a Vrel named Torvik, had taken it as a personal challenge to find foods the Void Render liked. Maggie ate the meat carefully from Jake's hand, then licked his fingers with a tongue that felt like rough sandpaper. Jake laughed. "You are such a sweetheart," he said. "I can't believe everyone was so scared of you." "They were right to be scared," Lisa said from outside the cell. "She killed 2 people, Jake. We cannot forget that." Jake's smile faded. "I know," he said quietly. "I think about them sometimes. About what happened." "It was not her fault," Lisa said. "The investigation showed that the containment protocols were wrong. We were treating her like a dangerous object instead of a living being with needs. We learned from that mistake." Jake sat down on the floor and Maggie lay down beside him. Her massive body was warm against his side. "What did you learn?" he asked. Lisa came to the containment barrier, holding her datapad. "We learned that intelligence and emotion are not the same thing. Maggie is not as intelligent as a human or a Krathan or an Aldarian, but she has complex emotions. Fear, comfort, trust, affection. We were so focused on her danger rating that we forgot she was a living creature." "And now?" Jake asked. "Now we are changing all of our protocols," Lisa said. "Not just for Maggie, but for all the specimens we study. We are bringing in consultants from different species who specialize in animal behavior. We are redesigning containment areas to be less stressful. We are training our staff to recognize signs of distress." She looked at Jake with a strange expression. "You started something important here, Jake. People are calling it the Morrison Protocol. Other research stations are adopting it. You changed how we treat animals across the entire sector." Jake felt embarrassed. "I just did what made sense," he said. "That is what makes it so powerful," Lisa said. "You used simple kindness and common sense. Those things should not be revolutionary, but they are." A voice came from behind Lisa. "She is right. You know, Commander Velther entered the research wing, his 4 arms carrying datapads and equipment. The security chief had been visiting the research wing more often lately. He was working with Lisa to develop new security protocols that focused on containment without harm." "Commander," Jake said, nodding. Velther approached the containment barrier and looked at Maggie. The Void Render looked back at him but did not react with aggression. She had learned over the past weeks that not all beings were threats. "I have news," Velther said. "The Galactic Collective has officially recognized the Morrison Protocol. They are sending representatives here next week to study your methods. They want to interview you." Jake groaned. "More interviews? I have done like 20 already." "This is different," Velther said. "These are senior members of the collective. They want to understand how a human maintenance worker succeeded where trained xenobiologists failed." "I didn't fail," Lisa said, a little defensive. "No," Velther agreed. "But you were working within the limits of your training." "Morrison worked outside those limits. That is what humans do. They break the rules and somehow make it work." Jake stood up and walked to the containment barrier. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" he asked. Velther's antennae moved in that thoughtful pattern. "I am still deciding," he said. "What I do know is that the galaxy has underestimated humans. We see you as soft, emotional, weak. We think your empathy is a disadvantage." "But it's not," Lisa said. "No," Velther agreed. "It is a weapon in its own way. Not a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of connection. You humans can make friends with anything, even monsters." Jake looked back at Maggie, who had fallen asleep with her head on his discarded jacket. "She's not a monster," he said. "She never was." Over the next week, the station prepared for the arrival of the Galactic Collective representatives. Administrator Krenix wanted everything to be perfect. The station was cleaned until it shined. Security ran constant patrols. The research wing was inspected 3 times. Jake just wanted everything to go back to normal. When the representatives finally arrived, There were 5 of them from different species. There was a Krathan diplomat, an Aldarian scientist, a Vrel military officer, a human ambassador named Karen Cole, and a being from a species Jake had never seen before. Something that looked like a floating crystal with lights inside it. They met in a large conference room on the upper level. Jake sat at one end of a long table, feeling very uncomfortable in the formal clothes that Pete had made him wear. He kept pulling at the collar of his shirt. The Aldarian scientist, whose name was Pelthus, spoke first. "Mr. Morrison, we have read the reports from this station. What you accomplished is remarkable. But we need to understand the process. How did you know that the Void Render would not attack you?" "I didn't know," Jake said honestly. "I just thought it was worth trying." "Worth trying?" the Vrel military officer said. He sounded angry. "You risked your life on a guess?" "It was not just a guess," Dr. Lisa Grant said. She was sitting next to Jake, there to provide scientific context. Jake has extensive experience with animal behavior from his work on Earth. He recognized the signs of fear and stress that our trained staff missed. The human ambassador, Karen Cole, leaned forward. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "Jake, do you think your approach could work with other dangerous species? Or was this just luck?" Jake thought about it. "I think every animal is different," he said. "But most animals have the same basic needs. Food, safety, comfort. If you can provide those things and show you're not a threat, most animals will respond positively. But you have to be patient. You have to pay attention. You have to actually care about them." The floating crystal being made a sound like wind chimes. A translator device spoke for it. "This concept of caring is interesting. It suggests emotional investment rather than scientific detachment." "That's exactly right," Jake said. "If you treat an animal like an object or a problem to solve, it will feel that. But if you treat it like a living being that has feelings and needs, that changes everything." The Krathan diplomat clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "This aligns with what we are seeing across human space. Humans have domesticated more species than any other civilization in the galaxy. We assumed this was because humans were foolish or reckless. But perhaps it is because humans understand something we do not." "Which is?" Pelthus asked. "That connection is more powerful than control," the diplomat said. They talked for 2 more hours. They asked Jake about his methods, his training, his philosophy. They watched videos of his interactions with Maggie. They took notes and recorded everything. At the end of the meeting, Karen Cole stood up and walked around the table to shake Jake's hand. "You have done something important here," she said. "You have shown that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our intelligence. It is our ability to see other beings as friends instead of threats. That is a powerful thing. I just wanted to help," Jake said. "That is exactly my point," Karen said, smiling. After the representatives left, Jake went back to his normal routine. He mopped floors. He emptied trash bins. He ate lunch with Pete and the other maintenance workers. But now, 3 times a week, he also spent time with Maggie and the research wing. Dr. Lisa Grant had officially made him a consultant for the xenobiology department. It came with a small pay raise and a fancy title that Jake could never remember. More importantly,